like it. I don't.
Thanks for joining us at this meeting of the UW System Board of Regents, or the Universities of Wisconsin Board of Regents, depending on who you ask. We will start today by calling the roll.
Regent Adams. Regent Odongo.
Present.
Regent Bogus.
Present.
Regent Brankus.
Here.
Regent Cologne.
Here.
Regent Goydam.
Present.
Regent Cruiser.
Present.
Regent Manny Deeds.
Here.
Regent Nixon.
Present.
Regent Peterson.
Here.
Regent Prince. Regent Rye. Regent Salzwedel.
Here.
Regent Trainer. Regent Tyler.
Here.
Regent Underly. Regent Walsh.
Here.
Regent Weatherly. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. As we consider items on today's agenda, are there board members who wish to declare any conflicts of interest regarding today's open session agenda?
Yes, I have one with the
Thank you, Regent Salzwedel. Go ahead. Go ahead.
resolution.
Okay, thank you. So if you would refrain from discussion and voting, and I actually have a potential conflict around the same one. So I will, yeah, and that'll be in tomorrow's plan. Anyone else? All right. The records of the April 4th and 5th, 2024 regular meeting and April 29, 2024 and May 31, 2024 special meetings of the UW System Board of Regents have been provided. Are there any corrections? Hearing none, the minutes stand approved as distributed. And also a report from the Wisconsin Technical College System Board has been provided. Any comments or questions on that? All right. I'd like to thank Chancellor Money and his team for their warm hospitality in hosting this meeting. They host every June meeting for us, and it's always very well done. So in advance, thank you for that. I'd also like to welcome our new colleagues, starting with Regent Haben Goydam, who was appointed in March of this year to fulfill the remainder of Regent Emeritus John Miller's term. Haben is Vice President of Legal at Mainspring Energy, a technology company that builds on-site power generation. Prior to her work with Mainspring, she spent nearly 10 years at Alliant Energy in both legal and business leadership roles. Early in her career, Haben worked as an attorney in the New York office of Jones Day. She currently serves on the board of directors for the Urban League of Greater Madison and the board of visitors for the University of Wisconsin Law School. A native of Madison, Wisconsin, Haben has an MBA from Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management, a JD from the University of Wisconsin Law School, and a Bachelor of Science in Economics from the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. Regent Goydam, welcome, and would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you, Regent President Walsh. I just want to say it is an absolute privilege to be a part of this group. Higher education has been the way that my family has been able to gain upward mobility as immigrants to the U.S. And so I'm just honored to be a part of this group, and I look forward to serving. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's good to have you aboard. Next, I'd like to welcome Regent Amy Trainer, who was also appointed in March to fulfill the remainder of Regent Emeritus Dana Walk's term. Amy Trainer has more than 2 decades of experience in public education and currently is Director of Learning Services at CSET 10 in Chippewa Falls. She previously served as a mathematics teacher and instructional coach at DeLong Middle School in Eau Claire, where she taught for more than 20 years before founding and serving as the lead teacher at Anthony Akers School in the Mondovi School District. Amy currently serves as Wisconsin Commissioner for the Education Commissions of the state, as president of the Wisconsin Teacher of the Year Network, and as teacher lead for Wisconsin's Every Teacher a Leader Summit. Amy's a national board certified teacher of mathematics, the 2013 Wisconsin Middle School Teacher of the Year, and a 2015 Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science teaching finalist. Amy graduated from UW-Stevens Point with a degree in mathematics and secondary education. She received her master's in education from UW-La Crosse and has her principal and curriculum director certifications. Regent Trainer, welcome, and would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Sure. I'm just super excited to be here and honored for this privilege to serve on this board. I'm excited about serving in a role of helping higher ed with a K-12 perspective. And just excited to serve with all of you who have reached out already and the remarkable people that are already on this board. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Regent Trainer. And as of last Friday, we have another 3 additional regents appointed by Governor Evers. Please join me in welcoming Tim Nixon, a commercial lawyer at Godfrey and Kahn and a member of the firm's bankruptcy and financial restructuring team. He's a frequent lecturer and speaker on matters involving commercial litigation, the Uniform Commercial Code, and bankruptcy law. Tim earned his bachelor's degree from UW-Green Bay and his master's degree from the Robert M. La Follette School of Public Affairs at UW-Madison. His law degree is from the University of Wisconsin Law School. Tim succeeds Regent Bob Atwell. Regent Nixon, would you like to make any comments?
I look forward to serving and giving back to an institution that's done so much for me and my family.
Thank you. Well said. Next, please welcome Jack Salzwedel, the former chair and CEO of American Family Mutual Insurance Company, a position he held from 2011 to 2021. Prior to becoming chair and CEO, Jack was the president and COO of American Family and served in many different roles and leadership positions at the company since he started there in 1985. Jack earned his Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration, as well as a Bachelor of Science in Biology from Wartburg College in Waverly, Iowa. Jack will succeed Regent Mike Jones. Regent Salzwedel, welcome, and would you like to say a few words?
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a real honor to be here. And I would just say that I've always felt that education is the great equalizer, and I've been a beneficiary of that. And so when I got the call to potentially join your ranks, it was a very quick decision for me. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to have you aboard. And last but not least, it's my pleasure to introduce and welcome Desmond Adongo, a student at UW-Oshkosh, where he is double majoring in economics and environmental studies. He's also earned a certificate in geographic information systems. Prior to attending UW-Oshkosh, Desmond worked as a learning and development operations coordinator at Foot Locker, Inc. He succeeds Regent Jennifer Staton as the non-traditional student on the board. Regent Adongo, would you like to say a few words?
Sure thing. I'm honored to have the privilege to serve on such a prestigious board. I look forward to infuse some of that student perspective into all of our discussions and decision-making processes. And I hope to collaboratively tackle all challenges that come up and face this board during my time here, and that we can reach decisions that can continue to preserve this UW system that we all value and ensure that it continues to provide a high-quality experience for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well said. We're all looking forward to getting to know you and working with you. And now, President Rothman, I believe you have several introductions.
I do. Thank you and good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, first of all, it's my pleasure to introduce Laura Reynolds, the new Provost and Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs at UW-Platteville. Laura spent most of her career working at comprehensive regional public universities, both as a faculty member and as an academic leader. She comes to the UW from Missouri Western State University, where she served as provost. Previously, she held administrative positions at University of Michigan Dearborn and the University of South Carolina Upstate. Laura earned a Bachelor's of Arts from Michigan State University, a Master of Arts from Midwestern State University, Texas, and a PhD in educational psychology and research methodology, I'll spit it out eventually, from the University of South Carolina. She's been on the job for a whole 3 weeks right now, so we'd like to welcome you to Wisconsin, Laura, and we look forward to working with you, and we'd like to recognize you, so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I would also like to welcome Melissa Nash, a longtime member of the Phoenix community who recently took on a new role at UW as UW-Green Bay's Interim Vice Chancellor for Business and Finance. In that capacity, she oversees human resources, budget, controller and accounting, facilities, information, technology, and the university union. Melissa is the university's Senior Human Resources Officer in her part-time role now at Woodsound Chancellor, with more than 20 years of experience in human resources and educational fields, and over 12 years specifically in HR at UWGB. Melissa holds a bachelor's degree in music education from St. Olaf College in Minnesota and a bachelor's degree in business administration and a master's of science degree in organizational change leadership, both from UW-Platteville. Welcome, Melissa, and I know she's on screen right now. I'm not sure we can see her, but if we can, you can please wave. So welcome to you, Melissa. There she is. Excellent. We'd also like to. This is Green Bay's Chief Business Officer and previously Interim Chancellor. Cheryl was recently named Interim Chief Financial Officer at UW-Madison School of Education. Next, I'd like to introduce Philip, or Phil Hirsch, as UW-Parkside's new Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration. He's been on the job for a week, so he's well experienced at this point. Phil is a collaborative leader with extensive experience in financial roles, which include responsibility for budgeting, forecasting, capital planning, financial reporting and analysis, and process improvement. During his career, Phil has utilized his financial skills across a wide variety of industries, including healthcare, retail, residential real estate finance, and appraisal, manufacturing, and distribution. In addition to his work in the corporate world, Phil is a strong advocate of giving back to the community and is currently serving his third elected term as a township trustee for Vernon Township, Illinois. Phil earned his MBA in finance from DePaul University, and he's a proud graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where he earned his Bachelor of Science degree in political science. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Phil. There he is. We'd also like to give thanks to Scott Menke for his years of dedication and leadership at UW-Parkside as our Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration, as well as most recently Interim Chancellor. Scott is retiring at the end of this month, and we wish him the very best. And I just had a chance to talk to Scott, and he said, talking about it as being bittersweet, which I think is a good thing, but I know he will also enjoy retirement, and I am grateful for his stepping in and serving as Interim Chancellor at Parkside not too long ago. At this time, we're also saying farewell to Monica Smith, our Associate Vice President for Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging. During her time with the Universities of Wisconsin, Monica initiated work to develop and share best practices to advance our strategic plan and support student success. Monica has accepted a new opportunity at the University of Richmond in Virginia. We thank her for her service, and we certainly wish her well. And with that, back to you, President Walsh.
Thank you, President Rothman. At this time, we would like to honor a member of the Universities of Wisconsin community who has made a tremendous difference in the course of his long career. And that is the Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration at UW-La Crosse, Bob Hetzel. After 17 years at UWL, Bob is retiring at the end of this month, and this board would like to recognize his legacy and accomplishments with a resolution of appreciation. I'll now ask Regent Ed Manydeeds to read the board's resolution of appreciation and lead us in the recognition.
Thank you, Regent President Walsh, and everybody here. This is really an honor for me. In the time that I've been on the Board of Regents, which to many seems like forever, I've had an occasion to meet many people who are special, who are nice, who are good, who are professional, and really are, I guess, role models for people all over the state. But I'll tell you, in meeting Bob Hetzel, he had something a little bit different for me, at least, because we're all impacted by people in different ways. And when I first met him, I was introduced to him during one of my first visits as a regent in my first year. He was the administrative vice chancellor for administration and finance. And when I first met him, he was very easy to talk to. He put me at ease. He didn't mind answering stupid questions, which I still ask, but he didn't think anything was not worth answering. And so I had a chance to observe him over the next several years as a regent, at regent meetings, at visits to La Crosse. I saw him interact with his colleagues. I saw him interact with people in the system, and I saw him how he conducted himself all that time. and it's always been consistent. It's always been the same. He's very, very nice. He looks at you and talks to you like you're the only person in the world, and he's listening and taking in what you're saying, and he's responding. A very rare trait these days. He is ethical, he's smart, he's hardworking, he loves his campus, and he's just a good person. And he's someone that makes me want to try to be better. And that's hard for me, but he is someone who makes me try to want to be better. So with that, I will happily read the resolution of appreciation for Bob. Whereas Robert Bob Hetzel has provided exemplary service to the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse for nearly 17 years as Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance, and whereas through careful targeted financial planning, Bob closed an inherited operation budget deficit within 1 year of starting at UWL in 2007, stabilizing the budgeting process for decades to come to direct financial resources towards strategic initiatives that strengthened academic and student life programs. And whereas Bob helped UWL establish the Growth, Quality, and Access Program in 2008, which increased undergraduate enrollment and permitted the hiring of 119 faculty and 25 staff, lowering the student to faculty ratio and contributing to UWL's high retention and graduation rates. And whereas Bob served as interim vice chancellor for university advancement from 2009 through 2010, and previously served in senior leadership positions at the University of Northern Colorado, where he earned his doctorate. And whereas Bob, a native of Hartford, Wisconsin, has soared as both a UWL Eagle and as a Warhawk, having earned his MBA, MS, and BBA degrees from UW-Whitewater. And whereas Bob generously shared his expertise, teaching university finance and governance, as well as legal aspects of student affairs at UWL, along with many courses at UW-Fond du Lac, which recognized as a collaborative partner for strong planning and stewardship by the city of La Crosse, partners such as Mayo Clinic and colleagues, governance groups, student groups within UWL and across UW universities. And whereas Bob's strong fiscal management and eye toward the future of UWL contributed to a successful shovel-ready approach to design projects leading to multiple completed projects that include the Veterans Memorial Field Sports Complex, Centennial Hall, Eagle Hall Residence, Student Union, Prairie Springs Science Center, Phase 1, Wittich Hall, College of Business, and the new field house for indoor track and field competitions and student recreation, with the notable achievement of both the men's and women's track and field teams winning the Division III NCAA title since opening. Be it therefore resolved that the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin System hereby offers thanks and commendation to Robert Hetzel upon his retirement for his unwavering service to UW-La Crosse and the citizens of Wisconsin as a dedicated leader, educator, and mentor.
Thank you. And we will pass everyone's gratitude and best wishes along to Bob, along with his plaques. So we really appreciate everything he did for the system. Just over a year ago, this board launched a new award, the Regents Business Partnership Award, to recognize the mutually beneficial relationships between Wisconsin's businesses and the universities of Wisconsin. Regent Bogus, other regents, and myself have had the pleasure of traveling the state to present these awards. From We Energies to Quick Trip to Century, these collaborations are vitally important to advance the next generation of research, provide career training through internships, and develop a pipeline for our students so they can land a job before they graduate. The impact of these awards exceeded our early expectations, and they've generated significant media interest in markets across the state. To capture some of what these awards are all about, I'm going to ask you to turn your attention to a brief video where our business partners will tell you in their own words why these collaborations are so important. Myself and my colleagues on the Board of Regents, we frequently have the opportunity to see panel discussions on topics that involve some of our industrial partners. We were so blown away by some of these panels that were held at the meeting in Eau Claire that we really stepped back and said, these relationships are so strong and so constant among all of our system schools. We really want to recognize them as partners. We want to put forward some public recognition of their relationship with us, but also just to say, hey, to the folks in the state, here's your Wisconsin idea at work.
Always humbling to receive any awards, but to be able to have that interactive relationship and ongoing relationship with the communities and here with education. We all benefit from education, and to be able to have access to the young minds that are going to be the workforce of tomorrow is truly awesome.
We get to do things that we won't be able to do on our own at Mayo Clinic with this partnership. The research and the innovation, the projects, the scholarship that's possible, we wouldn't be able to do on our own at Mayo Clinic. And so it really takes a partner that's fully committed to this.
It's a place that when I come back, I have great memories. I've made great friendships, and I just look forward to helping the next generation have the same kind of experience that I did.
It's really been a great relationship over the past 50 years. We also have a significant number of employees at We Energies and WEC Energy Group who are UWM grads. So it's been a great source of talent for our company and a great relationship together as we try to drive and change and shape and grow the Wisconsin economy.
There will be a lot of pride that our people feel from this, not just the people that are in this room, but the people throughout the country. We're friends with people we work with. So the conversations carry over to a barbecue or the driveway or wherever people talk about it. It's just, it blends together in a host of ways.
A lot of what we do, our vision is to help create the products that build a better world. And to do that, you need really great, innovative, diverse talent. And that's what Platteville helps provide for us.
We've hired a number of technical people and a number of engineers over the years from UW South. I think over 120 in the last 20 years. And we continue to grow.
Anywhere, any aspect where two people connect is ripe for creative exploration. It goes on and on.
So if we ever need to produce evidence in 3 minutes to illustrate how important our universities and our graduates are to the business leaders of Wisconsin, these examples are inspiring. We're also eager to share the video and more content from these awards on social media in the weeks and months ahead. One of the most inspiring parts of presenting these awards is to see the alumni employed by the companies, as well as current interns who are in attendance at the award ceremonies. All of us can be proud of the work we do to help our students discover their passions and to help our business partners compete and succeed. At an upcoming board meeting, we will hear more from some of these alumni and interns about the impact of their Universities of Wisconsin education. In the meantime, we'll continue to travel to universities and businesses around the state to present another round of Regents Business Partnership Awards. Just 2 weeks ago, we had the opportunity to recognize and honor the partnership between UW-La Crosse and the J.F. Brennan Company. The La Crosse-based marine construction firm J.F. Brennan, led by President and CEO Matt Binsfield, partners with UWL on the development of curriculum and research opportunities. That includes helping students through UW's Freshwater Collaborative to gain valuable research skills on the Mississippi River. Congratulations to J.F. Brennan, Chancellor Morgan, and the UW-La Crosse campus communities. And while we're talking about business, I'm pleased to share the news that the Wisconsin Small Business Development Center Network, SBDC, one of 5 programs at the UW's Institute for Business and Entrepreneurship, was honored recently with 2 Small Business Administration Awards. The UW-Madison SBDC received the Small Business Development Center Excellence and Innovation Award, recognizing its focus on development of artificial intelligence resources, assistance to Spanish-speaking clients, and training events to support the startup, management, and growth cycles of entrepreneurship. One of UW-Madison's SBDC clients, Fortune Favors, received the Small Business Persons of the Year award. Accepting the award, Sam McDaniel of Fortune Favors said the company would not be here without SBDC. Congratulations to our Wisconsin SBDC network. I would also like to take this opportunity to recognize another Universities of Wisconsin accomplishment, and that is to salute UW-Stout for being named a National Green Ribbon School by the U.S. Department of Education. The Green Ribbon Award is given to only a select number of schools each year. Stout was recognized for its long-term and ongoing efforts to infuse sustainability into their operations and into the classroom, and to create a campus-wide culture that advances environmental initiatives. Over the last 15 years, multiple efforts aimed at sustainability and reducing environmental impacts have resulted in campus emissions dropping by 33%, excluding emissions from commuting. Well done. Congratulations to Chancellor Frank and the UW-Stout campus community. And finally, I'm fond of recognizing athletic achievements, so I'm giving a shout out to the UW Superior for cleaning up in the Division III Upper Midwest Athletic Conference this year with 12 regular season championships, 3 postseason championships, 4 NCAA championship appearances, and a slew of individual awards. The Yellow Jackets claimed 3 postseason championship titles in softball and both men's and women's soccer. They also earned 2 academic All-Americans. Congratulations, Chancellor Wachter and the Yellow Jackets community. That concludes my report. To you, President Rothman.
Thank you, President Walsh. And I know that this will be your last meeting chairing this, at least last regular meeting chairing this board. And I just wanted to say a couple of words of appreciation to you. I am grateful for your dedication to the education and research missions of our universities. That creation of new knowledge, that educational function is incredible. I'm grateful for your tireless advocacy on behalf of the universities of Wisconsin and that. And I also thank you for the support and guidance you have given me in my role. Grateful, and I think you are leaving a legacy on this board that will serve it well. And I'm also thankful that you will continue as a regent. So
right, you can't get rid of me quite that easily. I have
Not-
2 more years on the board. Those of you who know me know when I come to commencement or anything, I don't like to read from prepared text. So I really don't have a speech planned. I just want to say a couple of quick things. One is to thank my colleagues for having my back the last couple of years when I was president of this board. They were not easy years. All of us know that. We wish some of it had been different. We were very lucky that some of it wasn't. So without your support and dedication to your positions as regent, I would have been lost. Also to the regent staff, these 3 amazing people have kept me running and resubmitted I don't know how many emails to me so they would be rescued from the bottom of my email inbox. But they're tremendous people who are dedicated to the function of this board and to making sure everyone is properly trained, that anybody's questions are answered. And they are terrific. They do terrific work. Also to the chancellors and provosts, who we have some of the best chancellors in the country. I wish we could pay them better. I wish we had more things we could offer to them to keep them here. Of course, we'd like to hang on to them, but I think it's high past time for us to compensate people properly, and that includes the people who make up our shared governance groups. And they're the last group I want to thank today. Even going back to when I was academic staff at Madison, I learned so much from faculty, staff, and students, and that has continued. I crash every one of their meetings, whether it be virtual or in person, and I don't think you're going to get rid of me quite yet. It's so engaging. I love their passion for work, and we are so fortunate to live in a place where these people believe in education as passionately as we do. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'll see you on the other side of the table next time.
So allow me to start my report this afternoon by going directly to a topic that has dominated the attention of universities nationwide in recent weeks, and that is demonstrations on our campuses regarding the war in Gaza. As we have seen, freedom of speech and civil dialogue clearly are not abstract concepts that exist only in classrooms or on editorial pages. We live in very challenging times, and as we have witnessed, there are passionate opinions on all sides of many contentious issues. Over the last month or so, a number of our campuses have had demonstrations in reaction to the ongoing situation in the Middle East. Through this, the universities of Wisconsin remain committed to upholding free speech rights while simultaneously upholding the law and our mission to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of our students and the communities we serve. It is often a balancing act that requires vigilance, patience, and respect. Our universities must be home for passionate and vigorous debate, and our students need to be free from harassment and intimidation as well. Balancing these goals can sometimes be difficult, but I believe it can be done, and it must be a priority of ours to ensure that it is done. Freedom of expression on our campuses is a concept that is deeply woven into the fabric of academia. One of the 4 pillars of our 5-year strategic plan at the universities of Wisconsin is to champion the democratic principles of free expression, academic freedom, and civil discourse. As a public university system, the universities of Wisconsin are charged with ensuring freedom of expression. That responsibility is derived from the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, which provides in relevant part, and I quote, "Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the right of people peaceably to assemble," end quote. Through court decisions over the years, First Amendment protections have been made applicable to public universities. While the First Amendment offers broad protections, those protections are not without their limits. First Amendment protections do not apply to, for example, speech that is libelous or slanderous, speech that seeks to incite violence, or speech that threatens immediate physical harm. First Amendment rights can also be limited by time, place, and manner restrictions. They are lawful so long as they remain content neutral. Much is written and discussed about freedom of expression on university campuses across our country, including by legislators seeking to ensure that freedom of speech is protected. An admirable goal, to be sure. But I'd ask this question: is freedom of expression really something that is being abridged at our universities, or is the challenge broader and more complex than that? I suggest it is the latter. Within the universities of Wisconsin, I believe the rights of our students to express themselves freely is not the primary issue. Rather, I believe the real challenge is ensuring the presence of civil dialogue. By this, I mean the simple act of respectfully sharing ideas or opinions and listening to the views of others. The challenge is to put these principles in practice. In this area, yes, we have been tested in recent weeks while striving to stay true to our core beliefs. As part of this process, and I think this is incredibly important, I believe our universities must seek to maintain viewpoint neutrality on challenging public issues. This is especially important when there are students and university stakeholders on multiple sides of any given issue. If we are to be a home for the free exchange of ideas, we must avoid taking sides during vehement disagreement on issues of public concern. Our public universities have a responsibility to focus on the educational mission in support of all students and the state of Wisconsin. Similarly, we must uphold the law. Where organizations and students are engaged in conduct that violates student organizational codes or is illegal, our institutions must and have acted. At both UW-Madison and UW-Milwaukee, reviews and investigations are ongoing as it relates to encampments. And of great importance, in no way should illegal activities create an environment that is hostile to any of our students. I would also like to note that while free speech and protests are something we support and are often home to, actions do have consequences that are not always visible or mentioned broadly in the press. Just one example, in the wake of demonstrations on campus, UW-Madison's Committee on Student Organizations, and this is a committee of which the majority are students, gave notice to several student organizations that it will be launching investigations into the allegations of either discriminatory harassment or the alleged roles these organizations played during the encampments in late April and into May, which may have included conduct that violated student organizational codes. I mentioned these types of actions simply to provide fuller context for the events that occurred and to reiterate that our universities, while remaining neutral, are also not just passive bystanders to whatever takes place. So I think the logical question is, what are we doing to promote that freedom of expression and civil dialogue on our campuses? This fall, all incoming freshman students will learn more about freedom of expression and the rights and responsibilities associated with the First Amendment through videos and other programming that will be ongoing through the first semester. This provides a foundation for any subsequent discussions and debate on a number of possibly contentious topics. And I know by talking to faculty members, it's going into the classroom. They are talking about it. People are having these ongoing conversations. Additionally, consistent with the strategic plan, we'll continue to engage in civil dialogue initiatives such as It's Just Coffee, just sitting down and talking about contentious issues. We also want to provide a forum for civil dialogue and action. Last month, the Wisconsin Institute for Citizenship and Civil Dialogue, known as WICID, along with the Wisconsin Institute for Public Policy and Service, or WIPS, convened an event where a group that included members of the UW community, legislators, representatives of national organizations, and students had an opportunity to dive into some of these issues. This is part of being the marketplace of ideas. It's just one example of how the universities of Wisconsin can help promote free expression and civil dialogue. There is clearly a desire for this conversation, and WICID and WIPS have created a program in which WICID will provide grants in 4 areas: research and events and related activities, assessment, and curriculum and professional development, all focused on the concepts of freedom of expression and civil dialogue. Finally, as you've heard me say before, universities have to be marketplaces of ideas, where students are exposed to various ideas and perspectives that will help them improve their ability to think critically and creatively, to analyze issues thoughtfully, to ascertain the accuracy of available information, and to problem solve. I submit those are the 4 most important skills that our graduates walk out of these universities with. Ultimately, though, it is up to the student to make up their own minds on any given topic. Now, I'd like to just give you a brief update on where we stand with Universities of Wisconsin and FAFSA. As you are no doubt aware, the enrolling of a new simplified FAFSA form, typically the first step for students seeking financial aid from federal, state, and institutional sources, has been far from smooth. Indeed, it is widely considered to have been an unmitigated disaster. Due to various delays and snafus along the way, the number of FAFSA forms actually completed has plunged both nationally and in Wisconsin. This decline is even more pronounced at schools with larger shares of students who may be non-white, economically disadvantaged, or who don't speak English as their first language. The ramifications of this are potentially significant. This is not just a delay. This could make the difference between whether or not somebody ultimately goes to school or doesn't. And Regent Salzwedel said it well when he said, education can be that great equalizer. It's not an equalizer if you don't get the education. We don't know yet how this story is going to end, how the drop in FAFSA completions will impact fall enrollments. But we know one thing is certain, it is not going to be positive. and the ultimate long-term impact on individuals and their lives and their families' lives and the workforce is impossible to calculate. So we have to put this into perspective. About 60% of the students currently attending the universities of Wisconsin receive financial aid. That's about 90,000 undergraduates and 18,000 graduate students. In 2022 to 2023, that year, which is the year for which we have the data available, those students received nearly $1.4 billion in financial aid from all sources, including $571 million in grants, $656 million in loans, and $11 million in work-study funding. This is often the vital piece of whether or not they go on to higher education. Now imagine being put into a situation where you think college is something that you want to do, that you may yearn to do, but through no fault of your own, you can't get the information on how you might be able to finance it. Do you apply anyway, or do you start thinking about doing something else? And there, in my judgment, lies the tragedy. And remember, this is happening amid a national narrative that suggests that maybe college isn't worth pursuing. I also want you to imagine something else. Imagine you work in the financial aid offices at one of the universities of Wisconsin. You know the value of higher education. You are committed to it. You are committed to the mission. And you are keenly aware your chancellors are watching closely to see what fall enrollments might look like. You also know that prospective students and their families are anxiously awaiting news of possible financial aid. The result for our financial aid officers is quite simple: enormous stress that they have been going through. Amid these very difficult situations, I'd like to acknowledge and thank our financial aid officers for their commitment to getting things done and getting those packages out as quickly as they possibly could. And to our universities for extending flexibility where needed by extending commit dates and reaching out to students directly to offer help and to help them find solutions and a path forward to get into college. There are some positive signs out there. According to a recent Wisconsin Policy Forum report, the FAFSA completion rate in Wisconsin increased nearly 5 times faster from March to April of this year than it did in the same period in the prior year. So hopefully we are getting some catch up that is happening. There is that opportunity out there. And it should also be emphasized that for students interested in the universities of Wisconsin, there is still time, in most cases, to build a financial aid package to make your college dreams a reality. It is not too late, and I encourage those prospective students to reach out. Our universities are there to help, and they will help you. And if you want more information on FAFSA, you can always go to studentaid.gov. So let me move on to a couple of other dates, starting with our strategic plan. You know, one of the important goals of our strategic plan is to grow the number of graduates that our universities are producing. The FAFSA issues weren't part of that game plan, I can assure you, but I commend our universities to continuing to do their best to remain focused on that outcome, focused on that life-changing event of securing that degree. In the Education Committee this morning, we heard an update about our dual enrollment program. At a prior meeting, we've heard about the new direct admissions initiative. These are just a few of the proactive strategies our universities are pursuing to help us reach our strategic plan goals, to help students and to help the state of Wisconsin. It's important to remember, however, that simply getting students enrolled and getting them started is just the beginning. Once students come through our doors, our dedicated advisors and academic coaches provide support in a myriad of ways, from academic to financial to mental health support. During recent campus visits and as part of the Global Advising Week, we spoke to a number of students about their advisors and why they're so important to students' success. I'd like to just watch this video that reflects some of that great work that's being done.
My professional advisor, she's really gone kind of above and beyond. She's really helped me navigate all these uncertainties. She's really there for me.
She was super supportive, always available to answer any emails and make appointments with me. So he's just really knowledgeable, really just puts his best in it every time we meet. And I just really appreciate that.
I'm blessed to have her as my current teacher, as my current teacher, my current mentor. And I am proud to say that I am on the right track right now.
She kept me on track. She kept me motivated. She made sure I knew what I had to do.
Because I know that she's doing the best that she can to help me out with my career in my future.
Anytime I want to pop in with questions, he's just there whenever you need him. Even if it's not his office hours, you can just go and talk to him about life, classes, whatever.
She helped me set up my classes and helped me a lot. Like even when I signed up late, she's always there to help me a lot.
She's just been really helpful in advising me in the way that she wants me to succeed and do the best of my abilities.
She did a great job at helping me as an Asian American, feel included, and helped me get to the Italian program.
She's just been wonderful. She's so nice. When she sees me in the hallway, she says hi.
Big thank you to everything you've done for me.
Thank you for supporting us.
Thank you, Liz. You're the best. You do the best that you can and the best in every time we meet. And I just really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you for everything you do.
And I suspect all of us can think about that individual or individuals that impacted our lives. Our advisors are doing that. And I'd just like to thank them along with the students for all that they do. And as we think about what is vital to being able to fulfill our mission as a public university system, it is having the right leaders in place. We invest a lot of time in identifying chancellors with the vision, experience, and leadership qualities to guide our great universities. And it's important that we also recognize the challenge we face in retaining them. To that end, in the near future, we need to assess where we are at in terms of compensation for leadership relative to their peers. I plan to have a recommendation ready at this meeting for the board's consideration, but we just need a little bit more time to work through some of the remaining details. Well, that compensation proposal will start with leadership. We will then extend our efforts for all faculty, staff, and employees into the biennial budget process. This reflects our desire to reward merit while also helping us catch up to market challenges. Quite frankly, in many cases, we have fallen behind in pay for our faculty and staff. And if we are going to preserve the quality of education our students deserve and our parents expect, we need to prioritize keeping the people that drive student success and treat them fairly. Finally, I'm going to close with a brief commentary prompted by a news article I saw recently in the Wall Street Journal. We're all familiar with the national narrative that's gotten some increased traction in recent years, questioning the value of higher education, both from a monetary perspective and otherwise. Despite the negative pushback, the data in this area seem abundantly clear. We have all seen and heard the numbers. Research consistently shows that individuals with a bachelor's degree, those individuals have higher employment rates and earn significantly more than those without a college education. That the figure that generally surfaces, it's $1 million or more over the course of a lifetime in additional earnings. Does someone need higher education to be successful in today's world? Of course not. Not everyone. This is a track that's not right for everyone. But if you want to play the odds as a prospective student and you have the ability, I have to tell you, I think you're better off getting that college degree. And so do a lot of other people. According to a recent survey conducted by the Pew Research Center, nearly 60% of bachelor degree holders report that their education was extremely or very useful in giving them the skills and knowledge they needed to get a well-paying job. By more than a 3-to-1 margin, those who have degrees found them very useful in their careers. It is also worth noting that parents who have a college education are much more likely to encourage their kids to go to college, despite any concerns that there may be around costs. When it comes down to it, those parents see the benefit and they want their kids to have the same opportunities that they had growing up. A college degree can give them that. This highlights the importance, by the way, of reaching out to potential first-generation college goers to ensure that they are not just hearing the negative talk about college, but also the advantages. That education that prepares you for jobs that do not yet exist, that helps bind us socially, that has people engaged in our society. The Wall Street Journal article goes on to point to four-year state universities as the best path for a positive return on investments in higher education. by providing valuable education at reasonable prices. Four-year state universities are a bargain when compared with their private counterparts, according to new research from the Strata Education Foundation, and can provide a pathway to financial security. Clearly, this is consistent with our message. Our 13 public universities afford Wisconsin students unlimited opportunities at an incredible value. And that concludes my report. Back to you, President Walsh.
Thank you, President Rothman. Now I'm going to turn the floor over to our host, Chancellor Mark Money.
Thank you, Regent President Walsh. And I would like to begin with many comments that reflect what many of you have said today in earlier meetings, but also President Rothman, many of your comments about the value of education, focusing specifically on the value and the impact of UW-Milwaukee. But I think that all of my fellow chancellors, provosts, and colleagues here in higher education would be able to tell very similar stories unique to their particular areas. The focus and the theme here is on transforming this university together, preparing better for tomorrow. And there will be three different areas that I'll cover. I'll start with talking about what's unique, some of the background facts of UW-Milwaukee. I'll move on and talk about the actual transformation, the heart of it. And then we'll talk about the value and impact of UWM, and as you've come to appreciate, the importance of investing in higher ed, but also UW-Milwaukee. So we are one of a kind. And I say that, and I'll put some numbers to this. There's only about 131 Research One universities in the country. There are about 350 Carnegie community engaged universities. These are specific designations. You put those two together, the Venn diagrams that overlap, there's about 85. But then when you put in the designation that we have, and we were the first in the state to receive the APLU, Public Land Grant Universities, Innovation and Economic Prosperity designation, there are only 85 of those. So the null set, what this comes down to ultimately is about between 50 and 60 universities in the country out of over 5,000 universities that have that combination. And of course, D1 athletics further refines us. So that's kind of a what, and it's descriptive. What happens as a result of that? What are the areas? Let's put this in the context of student numbers. So we run about almost 23,000 students per year, about 19,000 undergrad, 4,000 graduate students. 81% of our students, 4 out of 5, come from Wisconsin. And about that many stay in Wisconsin after graduation. We have over 208,000 alumni. And where do those alumni go? We've run some numbers, and we've shown that basically over the last 15 years, we've averaged more than 5,000. In fact, the number's pretty close to what we graduated last year. Side note, it's kind of interesting because enrollments in general have gone down at a lot of universities, but our average graduates have stayed the same over 15 years at about 5,300. Put that together and you've got over 75,000 graduates in the last 15 years, really a substantial number. They're working. Class of 2023, 97% are either employed or in grad school or both. And as I mentioned, 75,000 are graduating. So that's a little bit of background in terms of some of the unique things about UWM. The transformation that we have underway really covers 4 different buckets. This is part of our 2030 transformation plan. It's really our strategic blueprint. And we started this back in 2018 and 2019. And what we recognize is that 2030, as our provost, then Provost Britz would often say, 2030 is right now. The pandemic accelerated everything. So we needed to transform, we needed to change. So we've undertaken significant change. I'm going to talk initially about what we're doing for employees, because it has to start there. If we can't take care of our employees and they don't feel a culture of support and care, how will our students, how will our research have impact? How will we really truly engage in the community? I'll talk a lot about the work that we're doing with our students' academic and personal journey. That's the heart of what we're doing. At the same time, we do have impact, and that's that Carnegie Community Engaged University that seeks to have impact in a lot of different ways. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then I hope you like the graphic here. We do serve as an anchor to help the financial sustainability and the economic vitality of Wisconsin. So starting with employees, the value that's so important. And I'm very grateful for our employees. They are remarkable. There's nothing like them. As much as you talk about the importance of the leadership that we have represented in this room, it really is the bulk of our talent that makes the difference. They're hardworking. They're not compensated well enough. They've got incredible talent. This happens to be a picture of one of our fall award ceremonies that we had recently. We have fall and spring award ceremonies for different things. While I'm talking about employees, I do want to offer a special shout out to law enforcement. Here you saw their work today, but also the types of things that they've continued to provide in terms of security, whether it's around the commencements that we've had or any types of activities that are so relevant. So a special shout out and thanks to them. There are dozens of things we're doing for our employees. Let me just give you a little flavor of some of the things that are going on today. And first of all, though, the reason for that, what we've seen in organizations across the world is that after the pandemic, this concept of community has really been lacking. You have heard some stories in earlier committee meetings today about going to a university and not seeing as many people around. And whether it's students or employees, we see this an awful lot. And you've seen a lot of discussion in the commercial real estate world about, the offices of the future. This has significant impact on our capital budgets of the future, of course. But more importantly than that, what we're trying to do is find the unity in community in a very important way to bring people together to build those bonds back in. It's so important for that relationship. President Rothman talked about the advisor. It's quite a bit different when you can drop in the advisor's office in or out of office hours, as we heard. But if you're not here and you don't have that opportunity, it's completely different in a virtual context. The relationship is just not the same. So here's some of the things that we're trying to do. We've looked at this a lot post-COVID and recognized the importance of this. I want to put the emphasis on one. We have a professor, Dimitri Topitsis, in social work with our Dean of Students, Adam Jussel, who have put on over 200 different trauma-informed care workshops. These programs have been so well received that Universities of Wisconsin system adopted this, and over 550 participants from across the system have learned how to better support students, how to have toolkits to support colleagues and employees. The vitality of this program alone has been written up in the Chronicle of Higher Education as one of the best things that universities can be doing. This is one example. There's many, many others. Campus Cares. Every Wednesday, our campus has an email that goes out. And there's a number of different things, from the health and wellness classes, the types of meditation programs, lots of exercise activities. And we also focus in that context on affinity groups. How nice it would be if you find individuals at work who completely across different functions have an interest in gardening or brewing or different types of exercise or things like that, that you can just connect. And again, that's the importance of this. The irony is that we're very connected technologically. The digital world, we're so connected, over-connected arguably, but on a relationship level, we're not. So we're trying to build that fabric back into the campus. It's just vitally important. I could give many, many other examples. Concretely, when I had the opportunity with the compensation plan, chancellors have a discretionary amount. I took 10% of that and we allocated that to our lowest paid employees. So if you're at $50,000 and below, there's a graduated scale. You make more for every rung down by $10,000. So the lowest paid employees got actually more. Some of our employees got about 7.5%. And that's appropriate in terms of what they've gone through in the pandemic and the work that they've committed, the types of jobs to keep the lights on and to keep our campuses operating at important levels of efficiency. We also have a new employee orientation program driven by HR and our new leader, relatively new leader, Makta Fesahe, to really drive a lot of new, welcoming types of programs for our employees. So that's the foundation. And then what do? We really then can enable in a greater way the transformative effect for our students, their learning and their personal journeys. I want to talk a little bit about future-proofing because it's such an important concept before I get into the details. Future-proofing. The world is changing so dramatically, so rapidly. So what are we doing? We're actually sticking with some of the things that we think are important. We're focusing and continuing to stress the value of social science, humanities, liberal arts as a foundation, and requiring significant exposure to those areas because that's where you learn critical thinking, you learn writing, communication, interpersonal skills, things that are lifelong that help in a world of very short shelf lives in the technological or professional fields. We know that engineering, when I was in school years ago, they talked about 5 years was the shelf life of engineers. Well, what is it today? It's certainly dramatically shorter than that. And similarly, a lot of professional fields have that. So the importance of foundational skills is important. At the same time, data analyses, entrepreneurship, innovation, other areas like that are vitally important forever. And so we want to build those things into the curriculum. And many of our partnerships, many of the things that we have developed, new centers and institutes, are critically important. Quick example, Lubar Entrepreneurship Center, 5,000 plus touch points across our campus per year minimum. And that really infuses a whole different level of learning beyond what happens in the classroom. And it's so powerful to see that type of thing. So that's a little bit about future proofing philosophically. But let's talk about the campus itself and some of the types of partnerships that change dramatically, recognizing that the 18 to 25-year-old audience is diminishing across the country. And we have to find different ways to engage not only that audience, but we need to find other audiences. A couple cases in point. The partnership agreement that we signed in January of this year. Some of you heard our Vice Chancellor, Robin Van Harpen, talk about this earlier today. This is a picture of the 4 area technical colleges signing in January an agreement, the first in its nation, first of its kind in the nation, to have a partnership such that all 60 credits and all credits, all classes and all credits transfer to UWM. This week we had another Northeast Technical College sign up, and I suspect many other technical colleges will want to join as well. And here's the barrier that it helps overcome. How many students, how many parents, how many employers have said to you, we have a student who's at a technical college. Mark, I think you'll appreciate this. Regent Tyler, you know this world so well. They want to become a police officer, a nurse, an engineer, name the field, but they find that a lot of their credits don't transfer such that it takes them not only an additional 2 years, but maybe 2.5, 3 or more years. And they stand back and they say, that was a lot of money that I just spent. Why did I do that? I didn't know. We've taken that off the table. And more than that, we've grandfathered or grandmothered, depending on your preference, all graduates at any time from a tech college, not just current graduates. So we think this is going to greatly increase the pool. If we can't develop partnerships like this, we're not expanding our resilience and we're not showing the flexibility that's needed to adapt to a different world. But let's add more to that. Rural students oftentimes feel like they may be left behind because sometimes two-year campuses are not as abundant. We've doubled down and said we're going to have centers. So today, and you may have heard this in one of our earlier committee meetings, at Waukesha County Tech, we'll be opening in January of 25, the UWM Center at Waukesha County Tech, where we're offering at least 3 degree completion programs. We will be adding more graduate programs and others. Bonnie Bearwald, Ritu Raju, and our long time, I was going to say Vicki Martin, but her replacement, Dr. Cruz, will be working on and have already established conversations with timelines around UWM centers at other tech colleges. These are partnerships that enable us to have sustainability and really help us with the future proofing of what this university is about. Similarly, you've probably heard some of the things that are happening in universities of Wisconsin system-wide. We're also looking at the types of things with K-12 in a local area. So we've pioneered a direct admit program so that students are automatically admitted to UWM from MPS, and we're working with a lot of suburban schools to have the same type of program as well. While I'm on that, let me just mention something that President Rothman talked about. FAFSA is an enabler, and despite the headwinds that we have right now, we have championed the requirement for not only the largest public school system in the state, but many other schools to require FAFSA for completion. The numbers that President Rothman pointed out are staggering, but what's even more of the untold story is that because of FAFSA, incompletion rates, we're leaving a lot of additional monies on the table. It's estimated between $40 and $50 million before the debacle that we have today. Wisconsin students are not getting, they're leaving on the table $40 to $50 million because of incomplete FAFSA. Let's address that. Let's work on that as a system. It's just that incredibly important. And I'm not talking about loans for their debt. I'm talking about grants, free money, things that could make a huge difference in our students' lives and their success. So as we continue on the student path, a few other examples quickly, because you've heard some of these before, but I want to stress the importance and value of them. Support You and First Year Bridge are some things that are wraparound support services. An example, you've probably all heard of summer bridge programs historically. They're designed to address what's called the MELT, the students who say they're going to go to college, those that are admitted, but they don't show up. That's the MELT. We've expanded the summer MELT to become a first-year program that's a bridge all the way around. So we engage students while in high school. We really focus on a lot of work, but we continue in their first year, particularly for those students who are on what we call that academic bubble, those who do not have necessarily some of the grade point, some of the scholastic background to typically succeed in college. And I can tell you there's an awful lot of alumni in the world who have backgrounds that they are a little sheepish about. They weren't the 3.5 or the 4.0 student, and they say, if it weren't for programs like this, I wouldn't be here today. And they're incredibly important in organizational life. So you can see a quote from Kaya, who said, "First Year Bridge really helped me transition from high school into college. There are many kind-hearted teachers that will proudly help you anytime." That's the importance of what I talked about earlier in terms of that culture of care for our employees. If our employees don't feel the support, how are they going to create these kinds of environments? So that's a little bit about First Year Bridge and some of the Support You. Moonshot for Equity is the heart, one of the critical things that's important as an access university. There's not many universities in the state of Wisconsin that are dedicated to serving all students, no matter what their background, no matter what their GPA, income, or whatnot. But Moonshot for Equity recognizes explicitly that there is an achievement gap in this country. And oh yeah, in Wisconsin, that achievement gap is larger than in any other state in any other state in the country. We have the largest achievement gap between white students and students of color at high school than any other state, hands down. It continues in college. So what are we doing about that? We've said we are committed. We've stood up, and 3 regions in the country in 2019 and 2020 took a pledge, and we were going to do this: Memphis, Miami, and Milwaukee. We said by 2030, we're going to eliminate that achievement gap. The pandemic came along, and guess what Memphis and Miami did? They said, we can't take that on. That's just another initiative that's going to really put us back. We have to focus on what's local and what's something we can control. We said the opposite. When I say we, I want to give credit to UW-Parkside, Gateway Technical College, Milwaukee Area Technical College, and Carthage, public and privates coming together, working with EAB. And you may recall that we pioneered the EAB Navigate for the Universities of Wisconsin system. Today, it is widespread across all our campuses. We said we're going to put not only more technology, but we're going to have a lot more help across 15 best practices that make a difference. And we want to close that retention and achievement gap, and by 2030 have parity across those. That's the Moonshot for Equity. Philanthropically, in the first year, we had $5.1 million that came to UWM for this support. People really understand this. And it's amazing how the business leaders in this community can stand up and want to do more in this particular area. So that's the background, but I'd like you to hear from somebody who can tell you the impact as an alumna, but also somebody who is an employer and somebody who's been a prominent leader in our community. And she can describe, more than hearing from me, what happens as a result of this. What does this university do for the community? Ms. Crosse, she's president and CEO of Crosse Management Services. Many of you probably know her. She's a remarkable alumna, and she received an Impact Award from our Alumni Association earlier this year. She began her career as a tax specialist for Arthur Anderson and Company, and she worked in tax software and preparation before she was named the CFO of Milwaukee's Next Door Foundation. She was an economic development specialist for the Department of City Development before launching Crosse Management Services in 1996. Her company helps with contract compliance for projects ranging in value from $2 million to $500 million. In this video, you're going to hear some of the specific types of projects. So let's hear from Ms. Crosse in this video.
My name is Carla Crosse. I graduated from UWM in 1981. I was raised here in Milwaukee as well as in Kosciuszko, Mississippi. And then I moved back to Milwaukee to go to school at UWM. It was just the university that I wanted to go to. UWM is a university that is committed to the community. It's a totally different type of campus. which really, I think, fit my personality much more. My business, Crosse Management Services, our main focus is a consulting firm who coordinates supplier and workforce diversity on construction projects. We have some projects like Lambeau Field. We've been working on it since they really started the renovation back in, I think, 2001. And then throughout the city, we're working on quite a few projects now. Wisconsin Center District, the Future Museum, Northwestern Mutual North Tower. We're helping diverse and smaller businesses grow, make their dreams come true. But I think I'd like to say to the people who nominated me, thank you for noticing the work that I do and feeling that it was worth nominating me for an award. I was sort of elated and happy and surprised. I just want to continue to be sort of involved and make a difference in the city. For those of us who have received much is expected of us, and I try to do my best by giving back and making sure other people have opportunities to achieve their dreams.
Carla packs a lot into a minute and a half. You see the types of projects that she has impact on and how this education has affected her and the types of career opportunities it opens for others. In that context, what I'd like to do is show at scale the types of things that Carla is talking about. This is not meant to be an eye chart by any means. I wouldn't ask you to read down and try to get too much into the fine print, but across the top is really what's important. I mentioned earlier about 5,300 graduates per year. I'd like to just show you a little bit of a roadmap about where our graduates go. Almost 3,000 per year go into health and human services. We have, in fact, 22 different majors, healthcare majors alone on this campus. And that's why the importance of the health sciences renovation building that you heard about in the capital budget is so important for us to get that over the fence. We can put 300 more students into healthcare occupations alone if we get that facility. We have roadblocks that are because of the physical infrastructure on our campus. But this is one huge bucket. And if you're in healthcare, or if you need healthcare, you can appreciate the shortage. Dr. Rye, we've talked a number of times about the specific categories of need that you have at Purveya, but likewise, anybody in healthcare knows the impact. Likewise, I'll zip through and you can see, you can add these up. Business, 1,300, pretty significant impact in accounting, human resources, finance, data analytics, STEM, computer science, over 1,000 graduates per year in the all-important areas. And by the way, these numbers have been growing over the years. So this is the descriptive. This is, okay, important because of where they go. But I want to make two, I think, important comments about this picture. And any campus here could map where their graduates go. We are all similar in that way. But I want to distinguish this in a couple of ways. One is economic impact and meeting the needs of employers. What do we know about needs of employers right now? In southeastern Wisconsin, the 7 counties are called M7. Those M7 counties have 41,000 openings today. The needs are being met only about 1/3. So this is from MMAC, Milwaukee Metro Association of Commerce, their data. They renew this every year. And you look at their current openings, we're only able to fill about 1/3 of those. And what do we know from the Wisconsin Policy Forum report recently that came out in February of 24? 91% of the jobs that pay $75,000 or more, you need a college degree for. In fact, of the 41,000 jobs, if you put a map against them, there's 20 different occupations, primary occupations. 18 of the 20 require a 2 or a 4-year degree. Are we important to meet those needs? Can this region survive without us? It will be economically deprived. We will retard the ability for business to be done today and certainly for Wisconsin to grow. If you listen to Mayor Johnson, he wants to grow Milwaukee from about 635,000 to 1 million people. How are we going to attract companies? How are we going to retain talent if we're not providing the education? That's the other point that I want to make. Milwaukee, just like every other major urban city in the country, faces significant disparities in income equality. In previous Regent meetings, I have mapped and I have shown you specific zip codes, and I've shown you how there is disparity that correlates directly with education. Regent Goydam, we talked about this a little bit last night, and you said it again today, the great equalizer. Regent Salzwedel, same thing. This is essential for us to bring what I oftentimes call the 2 Milwaukees together. We have worked with Hispanic Collaborative. We have worked with Milwaukee Urban League, Greater Milwaukee Urban League. We've worked with a number of organizations. Our professor, Mark Levine, has mapped the data, and he shows that there is a ceiling, and there's a ceiling called $40,000 family income level. And if you're making less than $40,000, it's pretty darn tough to have a family, to have access to health care, decent diets, home ownership. Not that everybody wants or needs home ownership, but point is to have that life of security. Education, when you look at the education by zip code, and this is true across the country, you see those significant differences. And when you can change that, and when I make a statement from Wisconsin Policy Forum and talk about if you want to make 75,000 or more, 91% of those occupations require a degree. This is the economic realities that an access institution such as UWM and many of my colleagues are entirely committed to in terms of the work that we're doing in this state. We can really bring things together with economic prosperity for all. As my longtime friend and colleague Tim Sheehy of the MMAC would say, we are leaving a lot of people behind by not addressing and not creating equal opportunities for education that are embedded here. So again, simple picture, but there's much more behind it in terms of economic prosperity for all and ways that we can truly have an impact. Many of you have heard about, and I've gotten a lot of questions even this week, what's going on with that Microsoft partnership? Well, let's give a little background, and then I want to show you a video, a news clip. Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, graduated from here. Duh, you know that. Okay, everybody knows that. We've said that a few times. You may also know, and if you saw the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel today, I encourage you to take a look at the wonderful article on him hearkening back to his Wisconsin roots. In fact, some of you were at the event that we had the signing with the President of the United States, President Brad Smith, and other VIPs that came in and had the big announcement. At that announcement, Brad Smith was talking about his Wisconsin roots, and he talked about some of the key elements. And by the way, the senior human resource officer, she's from Waukesha. Okay, so we've got a pretty good thing going here in Wisconsin. They do joke about the inside pools. At Redmond, they talk about the Packers' loyalty and how they have to kind of keep that down a little bit. But it's pretty neat to see the Wisconsin influence on Microsoft, but it's come back full circle. So you're going to hear a little bit about this partnership from the news perspective. And then I want to talk about both what it means for UWM, University of Wisconsin system, but also for this region in terms of students, citizens, and really our state and beyond.
Cutting edge lab. Microsoft is bringing it here, and it promises to help local businesses.
Only 2 other places in the whole country have one. Jason Calvi tells us it's connected with artificial intelligence, AI.
Microsoft has 6 AI innovation labs across the entire world. The 7th is coming right here to UW-Milwaukee. It'll be the only one focused on manufacturing and the only at a college.
This is really exciting stuff.
The AI Co-Innovation Lab will come here, the center of the UW-Milwaukee campus. CSI, no, not the TV show, the Connected Systems Institute.
How can we use that technology to solve their business problems?
Institute Director Joe Hammond says it will help more than just businesses.
What a better set of experiences for a student than to come work in an environment where there's going to be 60 unique industry partners coming in to learn about AI in manufacturing that they can use to solve a problem in their operation.
The lab will have the goal to work with 60 different companies every single year.
Businesses can come in, manufacturers can come in, and we'll work with them to design the future of manufacturing using AI.
Microsoft's president, Brad Smith, grew up in Wisconsin. His company will pay for 5 positions at the UWM lab. That's 2 Microsoft employees and 3 contractors.
Data is everywhere, but making sense of this data is where the AI would help.
This AI innovation lab could be up and running within 100 to 120 days.
I look forward to what this brings. It certainly sounds exciting.
Jason Calvi, Fox 6 News.
The state is also pitching in on this. The Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation is giving $500,000 to help upgrade the UWM lab, and it's giving another $500,000 to help set up a new office inside that AI lab to help startups and entrepreneurs.
So this story put a few yips into some of our staff when they heard, this was the first time they had heard 100 to 120 days. Which like, oh my goodness, it really put a little fire under under folks' seats here. But let me give a little more background. The roots of this and why UWM and some of the key connections really come from something that we started 7 and 8 years ago when I had conversations with then CEO Keith Nosbush at Rockwell. Today it's Blake Moret, but Satya Nadella when he was fairly early in his career. And we talked about what UW was doing with manufacturing and opportunities. And at that time, it was around connectivity in the Internet of Things. It wasn't as much AI. But the world has evolved quite a bit as we were building out Connected Systems Institute, which doesn't have its own TV series yet, but I suspect we may at some point if we keep these news stories going. What's powerful and important today is to recognize that we've had a lot of other people come in. WEDC didn't just give another $500,000 here. They actually were one of the original founding investors at $1 million. We've had the Regents at Connected Systems Institute when we had grand opening. Several of you will remember that some years ago. It's a different place today, I can assure you, not only in terms of more partners, more investors, but the impact in terms of the students and the faculty that are developing a lot of skills, particularly around AI. Now partner that with the Northwestern Mutual Data Science Institute with Marquette. And you've got, by the way, north of $50 million invested collectively in that. And you bring this together and focus on AI. And you've got, let's just recite some of the things. Microsoft is putting $1.7 million per year in for 3 years minimum. You heard the 5 positions. Titletown Tech, which was not talked about here, a great partnership. And Mike at Green Bay has got a great relationship. So this is going to give us more connectivities with UW Green Bay. But with UW Stout as the Polytechnic University, we're going to have connections with them. Gateway Technical will be a satellite for our Connected Systems Institute. Other significant investments have come in. University of Wisconsin with Entrepreneur in Residence. Great partnership there. But we will expand across the state and have opportunities for students. And you heard this number of 60 engagements. Here's what that means. Small, medium, and large businesses that will become featured in-depth opportunities for AI per year. And this is going to scale dramatically across the state of Wisconsin. I talked to Satya Nadella 2 weeks ago. His personal assistant, her name's Cynthia Thompson, her son graduated from UWM. And that's a pretty neat connection, more connections back. So Cynthia was here. We called Satya Nadella at dinner that night. He said, I see Wisconsin as the manufacturing center. When we talk about intelligent manufacturing, strengthening the development around AI, we can be the showcase for the nation and beyond through this type of partnership. That's pretty powerful. So that's what this is about for those of you who've asked me. And I've said, hang on, I'll tell you more so you didn't have to hear it all twice. But that's the story and the impact for our students, for companies, it's significant. So I look forward to the integration of this. So broadening this out, another person who I think can share some great perspectives at scale about the impact of UWM is somebody who's been instrumental. Jackie Frederick, I'll call her Dr. Frederick because she's gotten an honorary degree from us some years ago. She was nationally pretty prominent when she came back to UWM. She had graduated from a program I'd been involved with for many years, our executive MBA program. She was number 2 to Elizabeth Dole at the American Red Cross. And she came back to run what was then known as the Blood Center. Many of you know Jackie because she's on a lot of different boards. You've worked with her. She's remarkable as a leader. She was one of the founding members of our research foundation, and she gets quite well the understanding and importance of research in a background with her work in biomedical fields. She has been widely recognized nationally and beyond in terms of the international blood banking work and things that she's done. And she really helped transform the Blood Center into what's today known as Versity. She is on our foundation board. She's, as I mentioned, a founding member of the research director, and she's also on our business advisory council. Because of her board membership, she's unable to join us today, but she sends her regards from the Theta Care Health Board meeting in Neenah, where she is right now. I believe, Dr. Prince, you're sharing your time and prioritizing us. You're on that same board. I'm sorry, I should not mention that. So I'd like you to hear her perspectives in this brief video, and I can assure you, we offered to help Jackie with her comments, and she said, I've got this. She wrote these specifically for you as Regents.
Thank you, Mark, and thank all of you for this opportunity to share my thoughts about the importance of UWM to our state. My perspective is informed by my personal experience. I am the first on both sides of my family to go to college, my father's dream. And my husband started in a one-room school in central Wisconsin and received his PhD in economics here. UWM has been a part of my professional life for many years. As a student, alumna, business leader, community volunteer, I've had numerous opportunities to engage with UWM to make our communities and state a place where individuals, families, and organizations working in concert thrive and meet the future needs before us. Why UWM matters. First, it is an integral part of our community, impacting our city, region, and state daily through its students, interactions with businesses, employers, and helping to solve critical issues. The work of learning, growing, and innovating takes place through its partnerships with industry and education, its faculty and students and alumni. Economic growth and creating the future through innovation is critical. Whether it's data sciences in leadership with Northwestern Mutual and Marquette, the Connected Systems Institute with Rockwell, and now the Microsoft Co-Innovation Lab with Titletown Tech, the water industry partnerships, or the convening of HERA and M-Cube to advance opportunity for all students. UWM is there on the front line. A commitment to student success is critical to our community and to economic growth. Without talent that meets the needs of the future throughout our state, there is no growth. Access to all is integral to our mission and to our social economic advancement. UWM meets people where they are, in their communities. 75,000 graduates in the last 15 years who stay in our state, particularly in critical fields of business, healthcare, and manufacturing. This is a huge accomplishment. One example is how the new College for Health Professions and Science brings together medical sciences, nursing, rehabilitation, science, and public health to ensure our graduates meet the new and expanding needs of our healthcare systems. We need your support to fund this critical facility. Lastly, I want to emphasize the importance of supporting research. Creating new knowledge is critical to advance statewide economic growth. With the businesses here and well beyond, to create the talent and discoveries we need to meet the future. UWM is committed to their research and access mission and needs your support. As Regents, you have a great responsibility to ensure we shape a future that advances all within our state. It's an exciting time to be a part of leadership. Thank you.
Well, Jackie has been and continues to be an incredible leader in healthcare and other things. That is the one thing that she has failed at. You heard it here from me. She's failed at retirement. She continues to give such great effort everywhere you look, and we're very proud to have her continue to give her time in so many great ways. So as I turn the corner to wrap up here, I want to talk about, as I mentioned, the third area of my comments, the importance, the value of UWM, and really the type of investment and the importance of it. We've made a lot of investments. I think anytime somebody asks you for investments, you say, what have you done? What have you put forward? And I'll share with you some of the things. You've heard, if you attended some of the earlier meetings today, some of the topics. So I'll focus on what we're doing first. We've increased our own financial aid, both through philanthropic fundraising, but also in terms of the reallocation toward students, recognizing how important it is. We have the most significantly most challenged financial unmet need of any campus in the UW system, hands down. You've seen some of the data on this in earlier presentations, but just to put a number on it, it's well north of $7,200, $7,300 per year per student. The average across the system is closer to about $5,000 per year, so it's significantly higher. That's the importance of this. We are self-funding the Milwaukee Tuition Promise this fall, as you've heard. We are putting in, as I've mentioned earlier, a lot of additional technology around the Moonshot Initiative. We look at the number of individuals. President Rothman has spoken a number of times about those who've started college, have some college degrees or some college credit but haven't finished. This is the Second Chance program that we've developed to put scale around how do we significantly engage with the returning students who are not the 18 to 25-year-olds, but populations who might want more. When I mentioned earlier, 97% of 2023 graduates are working or going to grad school or both. This is because of intentionality around upping our game, putting more into career services, recognizing how important that is. We know student services cannot simply be in advising. It can't just be in financial aid. It just can't be in academic affairs. It has to be holistic. It has to break barriers down. We've worked an awful lot on the investments there, putting a one-stop shop into Financial Student Services Center. And then importantly, looking at our endowment and our philanthropic success. There's no public university in the world that is going to thrive in the future without a stronger endowment. Public budgets across the country have declined over the last several decades. It's an inescapable fact. And while we hope for and we may get increased investments in the future, it is not going to go back, in my estimation, to what it was when I came to UWM in 1989. 47 or 48% of our operating budget came from the state. Today, that number is closer to 18%. That number is not going to go back. It's unlikely we're going to go back to those numbers. So the importance of the endowment, which again, when I came to UWM was virtually non-existent, we have doubled the endowment in the last 10 years. We're at now almost 150 million. My goal is for us to get to a $500 million endowment, which is going to enable us to have a little more independence. That's what's critical for us. So let's talk about some of the things that have happened just this year and last year. Last year was our second largest philanthropic year in history of UWM. This year is our largest by far, substantial. We're at $41.8 million today. I don't want to put our Vice Chancellor, Joe Nesbitt, on the spot, but I think we're going to potentially add a little bit more to that before June 30th. And I can tell you that's vitally important. We have been, and we're not in a campaign right now, so we're doing pretty well on that front. Some of the types of gifts to give you a feel for this. Zilber Family Foundation, $20 million this year. You want to talk about the importance, if the pandemic didn't teach us anything, the elevation of public health, critical, and the Zilber Family Foundation stepped up to help us. One of the largest gifts in the country in public health. Northwestern Mutual Foundation, continued support, $5.6 million. Greater Milwaukee Foundation, $3 million. We Energies, a couple of million for Moonshot alone. Kikkoman Foods, I'm particularly excited. Some of you have heard me talk about this before. A year ago Friday, tomorrow, I had to leave the Regents meeting a little bit early. Went down to celebrate the 50th anniversary for Kikkoman. One of the highlights of that meeting was a $2 million gift for them, in addition to the $1 million they'd given us earlier for our School of Freshwater Science for clean labs. They gave us $2 million for the research vessel Maggie Sue. The Maggie Sue has now received $17.5 million in funding, which allows us, we're going to come back to you very soon and ask for permission to proceed with putting this to bid. We now have raised enough to proceed with this research vessel. We anticipate a number of additional gifts. This will be the most advanced education and research vessel on the Great Lakes by far. The importance of this from an environmental, from an economic development, if we think about fisheries, tourism, all the things that freshwater means, this is exciting. This is a tangible, visible outcome and achievement. So this is what is happening right now in terms of our investments, where we're putting our time. I did talk to a governor several governors ago and asked him, would the state be willing to step up and help with the research vessel? This was a decade ago. And the governor said, it would be difficult politically to support something that's just in one school. But if we can make this beneficial for the entire state, we can have a great opportunity here. Some of you know Regent Mike Falbo. He was with me with that conversation. That was the birth of the Freshwater Collaborative, because we realized if we can bring, and today we have with every single campus, Freshwater Collaborative is where we have education opportunities that are shared, research opportunities, funding from the state, and great things underway. So this is the power of us working together. As I think about the theme, transforming for tomorrow together, it doesn't happen alone. There are some things that you can help with, and the state of Wisconsin can help with, of course. These types of categories are important for all of our institutions. Increased retention and graduation rates. I can tell you right now that higher education is challenged. There's very few academic institutions, particularly urban institutions, that get all students through on time. Fact, it's a reality, especially when you have an access mission. Students of lower income, students who don't have some of the academic backgrounds, and some of the types of support, as we saw during the pandemic. Who fell down more? And we have had instances where I go to national conferences and people show us the effects of the pandemic, the educational slowing down will affect us for decades. It is a long, long game to recover from that. That's why this is so important. I remember Regent Rye's first meeting of the Board of Regents. And Regent Rye, during the pandemic, you talked about this generation of students coming in will be more challenged in terms of housing, food, and academic preparation, mental health than any other generation we've had. And we've seen that now play out years later. That's exactly where we're at. Closing the equity gap, of course, support for that can help us reduce what's in Wisconsin, 18 percentage gap in high school, 18-point percentage gap. Let's bring that together and not have that continue in higher ed. Of course, the workforce matters. You know, there's 100,000 employee shortage projected by 2027. Think about the opportunity this is for all of us, and particularly President Rothman, for your goals, for us to put more employees into the workforce. And remember how many of those are going to need degrees. But economic growth, we're the wellspring. This is the heart of what enables us when you talk about smart manufacturing, smart healthcare, smart art, smart anything. Advancing innovation, it only happens with the R&D that happens through us. Expanded research capacity, community engagement. I can tell you when we engage with Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, when we engage with CEOs, major employers, they talk continuously about, yes, talent is important, but it's also got to be the research and the transfer of that research like we do every day. So as I look at the partnerships and the kind of work that we do, that leads me to my summary slide. I'll put a couple of points up here and develop these ideas a little bit. I'll make some bold statement. We need a successful urban research and access university, and there is a ripple effect. So I can say those things, and those are just words. Let me build the case for them as I wrap this together. This is the unique and profound opportunity that faces us today. I can tell you we've shaped the past. I can look at, and having been here quite a while, I look at our alumni, and I look at the companies across the state, and I see where our alumni go. Two different areas. One, the backbone. They are the talent base, hands down. You've seen that from some of the other presentations today. Also the senior leadership. But it's the research, it's the ideas. Let me give you a quick example. There was a study done about 7 years ago on the film industry in Wisconsin. And they studied the economic impact, and it was shocking. And I'll follow up with the study if you're interested. The dollars in the state in terms of employment and the export dollars are greater than the brewing industry. Think about that for a moment. Film is bigger. There's independent filmmakers, there's large filmmakers, bigger than brewing in Wisconsin. Why did that happen? Where did it come from? Because you have at UW-M, one of the top film schools in the country, that has put out a lot of graduates that have made a huge difference. So it's that translation. It's an example when we talk about, yeah, we created the past, but we are the present today. When we talk about where our graduates go, I've given you an awful lot of data, I think, on that. But we're also the future, where our alumni are having impact. The Lubar entrepreneurship, when you talk about these partners and the transformation together, the Northwestern Mutual Data Science, Freshwater Collaborative, what you've heard recently about Microsoft, and more in the queue. It's not that we've responded to needs, we've actually advanced. We've met those needs, we've met employer needs, we've strengthened economic development, we've bolstered education opportunities, improved public health, we've addressed water challenges, scarcity, and so forth. At the same time, and you knew this was coming, with further investment, we can do even more. But the saw cuts both ways. If we don't have that investment, we're hobbled. And you heard what we can't do in earlier presentations. But we need your help. And we need your advocacy, it's your political persuasion, it's those types of things that are going to help us. So a lot depends on this, and we do value tremendously our work and your support. So thank you, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Mone. Appreciate the time and the informative talk. Any regents have questions or comments for Chancellor Mone? Okay, I think we will dismiss you with our thanks. And before we move to the budget, I'd like to propose a 10-minute break.
Thank you.
See you back here in 10. Please take your seats.
Wants to do it.
Okay, she's hit the hammer. All right.
You're not old enough to love.
Oh. All right, and after that well-deserved break, we're just gonna stop for the day. I'm just kidding. I know it's a nice day outside, so the fact that we're now going to turn our attention to the 2024-25 annual operating budget is the small challenge for the rest of the day. This is important stuff, though. This is the fiscal year that begins July 1st. President Rothman, would you start us off?
Thank you very much. I know that Regent Rye will provide feedback and the recommendations from the Business and Finance Committee in the proposed fiscal 2025 budget in just a moment, but I wanted to add several high-level points as you consider the recommendation. We continue to work hard to align our budget to the objectives set forth in the strategic plan this board approved in December 2022. It is imperative that our budget priorities do not deviate from our strategic priorities. While this is a work in process, which has been made more challenging by the revenue challenges we face, we are making progress. Vice President Sean Nelson shared a number of examples of that alignment at the Business and Finance Committee meeting earlier today. And for even greater detail, I encourage you to take a look at the campus by campus descriptions included in your board package. Secondly, Jen, stepping back to the bigger picture, our universities, as reflected in the proposed budget, continue to work toward eliminating structural deficits by 2028 as dictated by our strategic plan. The budget contemplates that we will be down to 6 universities running a structural deficit by fiscal year end 2025. Well, that is indeed encouraging. Some of the universities projecting deficit elimination still need to effect some substantial budget reductions to achieve their goal. In addition, fall enrollment will play a large role in meeting our revenue projections. And as I noted in my report earlier, the FAFSA debacle is creating yet another obstacle for us. Finally, I would be remiss if I did not reference our funding situation because it is clearly evident in the structural deficits our universities face. The old adage, you can't cut your way to success, applies without question to the universities of Wisconsin. Through the investment of Wisconsinites over the decades, we have a stellar university system that is an undeniable contributor to our state's economic prosperity. But we take that for granted at our peril. While there can be debates about whatever measure might be most appropriate, one cannot credibly argue that the state's investment in our public universities does not generate a substantial return on investment. And yet, our state support and tuition dollars rank us 43rd. We were 42nd the last time I spoke to the board. We are now 43rd in the most recent calculations out of 50 states. 43rd out of 50 states in the nation in terms of funding for our public universities. The delta between our rank as 43rd and the median of all states, the amount of money it would take to fill that delta is $457 million annually. Shouldn't the support for the universities of Wisconsin be at least at that median level? Don't the next generations of Wisconsinites deserve that level of investment in their future? All of us sitting in this room today have benefited from the prior investments the state made in the universities of Wisconsin. And now the state has a decision to make about our future. I hope we, as Wisconsinites, choose wisely. Thank you for allowing me to share a few words, and back to you, President Welch.
Thank you, President Rothman. To lead us in a discussion of the UW system's 2024 to 25 annual operating budget, I will call on Regent Ashok Rai, Chair of the Business and Finance Committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Regent President Walsh. This morning, the Business and Finance Committee reviewed, discussed, and voted to adopt the UW system's annual operating budget for the 2024-25 fiscal year. In his presentation to the committee, Vice President Sean Nelson noted that the budget is based on the second year of the state's biennial budget enacted last year, as well as tuition and rate adjustments approved by this board earlier this spring. To summarize, the expenditure budget for fiscal year 25 will increase by $474 million, or 6.3%, while the revenue budget will increase by $515 million, or just under 7%. The increases to the expenditure budget result mainly from projected increases in research grants, philanthropy, tuition, and GPR dedicated to employee compensation. In addition, a total of $34.8 million in tuition balances is planned for one-time use. The budget document again contained details on each of the universities, including the key factors that impact their revenue and expense budgets, their fundraising efforts, and the initiatives they are undertaking in support of the goals of the UW strategic plan. Regents will recall last year, 10 of the 13 universities projected a structural deficit. The budget document describes the steps taken by those universities to eliminate or reduce those financial gaps. As President Rothman just mentioned to us, the number of universities projecting a structural deficit in fiscal year 25 is down to 6, and the budget document likewise outlines their ongoing plans to address that challenge. One campus, as noted in Vice President Nelson's report, has now exhausted their unrestricted reserve balance and is now projected to have a $7.6 million cash deficit for the first time in system history. That campus is UW-Oshkosh. That balance will be covered by reserves at the UW system with the expectation of payback in interest. Chancellor Levitt presented and stated he believes this projection to be due to timing of actions already taken and the realization of those actions being delayed. He feels the projection of cash deficit to be less than $4 million. The committee is expecting an update to this projection at our next meeting later this summer. We encourage the universities to remain fully committed to the implementation of their fiscal remediation plans. The elimination of structural deficits is not only an important goal of our strategic plan, it is imperative to the financial health and overall strength of our institutions. With that, on behalf of the Business and Finance Committee, I now move adoption of Resolution 10, and along with Vice President Nelson, would be happy to entertain questions from my fellow regents.
Thank you, Regent Rye. Is there a second? Thank you very much. Questions, comments for either Vice President Nelson or Chair Rye?
I would like to comment what I did to you. I'm going to vote present because I've been a regent for either 24 or 72 hours, depending on how you want to count. And just so other people know what the rest of you had to look at, this is just for today. So I don't feel comfortable. I've looked at it, but I would like to vote present on it when the time comes.
Okay, Regent Nixon, that's fine. And we'll postpone the discussion of the Iliad and the Odyssey until maybe breakfast tomorrow morning. Thank you. Question for you, Regent Rye. As you looked at this document, was there any piece of it that was particularly of concern to you?
I think the aspect of what's a concern to me, Regent President Walsh, is more of what's not in the document. And we talked about that in committee a little, is better line of sight on a more detailed level, especially when it comes to benchmarks on the expense side. Our largest expense, obviously, is people. And it takes people to educate our students and to make each campus run. We have good line of sight on revenue, and we know that that's not going up. But we don't really have a benchmark. I mean, obviously, every campus is unique. We have 2 R1s and a multitude of regional comprehensive campuses. But benchmarking the expense item, basically going back to what does it cost to educate one of our students. And although we have uniqueness amongst each campus, I think we need to start to focus on those benchmarks and try to get better comparisons amongst our regional comprehensives and better standardization around our cost aspects. That's one component. The second component goes to later in the meeting, and we don't have the luxury of time, and I also don't believe we have the luxury of choice anymore when it comes to truly operating as a system, especially when it comes to shared services. I do believe that those involved in shared services at system have done a great job, and I know have been highly, not distracted, but focused on the ATP project. But I do believe that's just a start to where we need to go when it comes to shared services. And the choice of campuses to take advantage of shared services, I do believe this board needs to now set as an expectation.
I like that idea, absolutely, Regent Rye. Vice President Nelson? Could I ask you to just, for the Regents who were not at Business and Finance today, I thought you gave a good description of where we are with the number of our schools in a structural deficit and where we expect that to be within the budget context.
Yeah, no, so last year we had 10 of our 13 campuses with a structural deficit, and that's defined as our recurring expense, right? Doesn't meet our recurring revenue. Our recurring expense exceed our recurring revenue. And this year we're projecting to be 6 out of 10, which is progress. I think what is also notable though, of those 6, 3 of those 6 have actually made progress in terms of reducing their deficit. So really we just had a few campuses that are either, sort of steady state from last year or a little bit worse than they were last year, but we have 9 campuses that have actually improved. So that's a good sign. And I do think acknowledging the Oshkosh situation is important. I think they do have a timing issue. They have accelerated a pretty aggressive plan for cost reductions that haven't been fully realized yet. So I do think once we come back to the board later this summer, we'll have a much better visibility into where they actually are, and we'll report back to the board.
And as our main finance guy, what are you satisfied so far with the work of Deloitte?
Yes, I think they've done a fairly fine job of, giving consistent comparisons from campus to campus. It's been helpful to us. I mean, they're using a lot of our data, obviously. It's not information that we weren't aware of, but I think helpful to have it in that consistent and contrasting way with other campuses. They've also been able to provide a lot of opportunities for campuses to either, increase their revenue or find some efficiencies in their operations and so forth. And, obviously in having a third party, come in, I think give us that kind of assessment has been very beneficial as well.
Thank you. I do miss a bit Regent Atwell, who was a great addition to the Finance Committee and always had some good comments. But Regent Atwell was a fiscal hawk. Being a banker, he did that extremely well. So we'll miss him for that. Any other questions or comments from the board? Overall, I realize that this document is quite large. It's the most important thing that we do outside of hiring chancellors and system presidents. I would encourage my colleagues to go back over the budget, look for anything that you might have questions about, write it down. I'm sure that Vice President Nelson and his staff would be happy to walk you through some of the parts of this that are so complex. And the issue we have, of course, here is we're not dealing with 13 cookie cutter campuses. So approaches to things like fiscal responsibility and the ability to take care of the problems that they had, they are different from every place, but we have common needs. And I like what Regent Rice said about setting some benchmarks. I think that's a very good goal for us to hit this coming year. Yes, Regent Peterson.
I've got just one comment. I've been here through 4 system presidents. And what struck me today as we were doing the capital planning and also the budget was that there's a lot of everybody's is in sync with the strategic plan, and it's talked about all the time. And the effects and the changes that you've made since you've become president are just stunning. And I really appreciate all the effort that you've made.
Thank
President
you,
Rothman.
Regent Peterson. I can't take much of the credit for that. I think President Rothman's real push for us to balance our books, or at least make progress toward balancing our books. This was crucial. I mean, when I became a regent, as one of Tony's first appointees, I thought, well, no one at the board level is going to pay attention to me because I'm a liberal woman from Madison. But when they discovered I was a bit of a fiscal hawk, it really opened a door. And I think Regent Atwell pushed me in that direction as well. But there are a lot of people at this table for whom that is really important. So anyone else? Okay. If there are no more questions, we're ready to vote. This will not be a roll call vote. It'll be simply a voice vote. All in favor of passing the budget as indicated, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? And the budget carries.
Present.
Yes? Oh, present. Okay. We will record you as president, Regent Nixon.
Thank you.
Okay, the board will now hear an overview on Title IX and the steps the universities of Wisconsin will be taking to comply with new rules from the U.S. Department of Education, and those take effect very soon on August 1st. Here to lead this overview is General Counsel Quinn Williams, Chief Compliance Officer Paige Smith, and Title IX Coordinator Danny Thompson. You don't need the concept.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about the recent changes to Title IX and the educational amendments and seek your approval of necessary actions, which will be outlined by Quinn Williams, General Counsel.
Excuse me, Paige, could you move the mic a little closer to your mouth? It needs to be probably about 4 or 5 inches in order for it to really pick up and project your voice. Thank you.
Is that better? There we go. Okay, thank you. My name is Paige Smith, and I'm the Chief Compliance and Risk Officer for the Universities of Wisconsin. I'm joined today by Danny Thompson, who is our Title IX and Clery Compliance Specialist in the Office of Compliance and Integrity, as well as Quinn Williams, General Counsel. As background, Title IX of the Educational Amendments of 1972 was signed into law more than 50 years ago to ensure that no person experiences sex discrimination in federally funded educational programs or activities. In decades since, Title IX's protections have paved the way for tremendous strides in access to education and more for millions of students across the country. It has been a key component and compliance area for universities, which includes and is not limited to education, training, policy and procedures, monitoring and reporting structures to fulfill the support and rights of and responsibilities of both students and employees. This work includes having a designated Title IX coordinator at each university, to which all of our universities have. On April 19th, 2024, the U.S. Department of Education released new final rules under Title IX, which modifies the existing 2020 regulations in several ways. During the drafting period of the proposed rules, the department received over 24,000 comments from the public in regard to these changes. According to the department, the final regulations will help to ensure that all persons, including students and employees, receive appropriate support if they experience sex discrimination or sex-based harassment in schools, and that schools' procedures for investigating and resolving complaints of sex discrimination are accurate and fair for all involved. The final rules have an effective date of August 1, 2024, a very short turnaround, during which all covered parties, including the universities of Wisconsin, will be required to be compliant with said rules, including handling all complaints as of that date under the new procedures. I'm pleased to introduce Danny Thompson, our Title IX and Clery Compliance Specialist, who will provide a brief overview of the changes. Danny?
Thank you, Paige. So the original clause of Title IX was exactly 37 words long. So 37 words that changed everything. Now, the actual practice of Title IX and the rules that govern it is much longer. The rules that were sent forth in April 2024 were 1,577 pages long. So we went from 37 words to 1,500 pages. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a brief overview of Title IX in 3 of the major areas. Title IX does apply to both students and employees. So the first area is sex discrimination. And as Paige said, since 1972, Title IX prohibits sex-based discrimination in educational institutions who receive federal funding. This did begin and started mainly in athletics, but it also covered what is considered gender-based programs, such as medical schools and law schools. At that point, they were no longer allowed to either limit or ban women from applying or attending. The second area is sexual misconduct. In 2000, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that sexual misconduct, which includes harassment, sexual assault, dating violence, etc., also fell under Title IX, and that universities have the responsibility to act when sexual misconduct is reported under Title IX. The third area is under pregnant and expectant parents. So pregnant and expectant parents have always fallen under Title IX and protect students from being expelled solely for being pregnant. Title IX requires accommodations to be given to students under those conditions. So for 2024, there were some major changes. Under sex discrimination, In 2020, the Supreme Court ruled that sex discrimination should also include sexual orientation and gender identity. The 2024 regulations basically align with this change. Training is now required annually for all employees on sex discrimination, when to report, and the grievance process. And this was not previously required. And then beyond that, specific trainings for confidential employees and Title IX practitioners, which include our Title IX compliance specialists, our Title IX coordinators, investigators, decision makers, et cetera, are also required to do extra training on an annual basis. Under sexual misconduct, they have now clarified definitions of sex discrimination, sex-based harassment, sexual assault, and other sexual violence categories, along with retaliation. There is significant change to the grievance process, which includes how reports can be made, how they've expanded, and when and how people can report. The new regulations also clarified supportive measures that should be given to both parties on an individual basis. These supportive measures have been greatly expanded. Under pregnant and expected parents, they have now clarified what an accommodation is and lays out rules for students returning to school after being pregnant. It also requires lactation rooms on campuses for students to use, whereas before that was only required for employees. And the last thing is all employees are trained on when and how to provide the Title IX coordinators information when a student discloses a pregnancy or related condition, so that student may talk to the Title IX coordinator and figure out what accommodations work best for them on an individual basis.
Thank you, Danny. So as Danny's outlined, there are a number of changes under these new rules. But we want to recognize that we have, in fact, been working and planning for these new rules over the last year and a half. Thanks to Quinn Williams' leadership, as well as Danny Thompson's involvement, there was a Title IX team that was comprised of both university stakeholders as well as UWSA administration. And this group began planning for the rules back in spring of 2023. They have been instrumental in collectively identifying the necessary proposed changes, preparing drafts of proposed policies and administrative code changes, as well as discussing the best practices for ensuring that we are providing the proper education, support, and information to our students in light of these changes. The Office of Compliance and Integrity and the Office of General Counsel are fully committed to providing the ongoing support and expertise to our universities during these proposed changes or actual changes, and will continue to work toward that goal. We will now turn the presentation over to Quinn.
Thank you, Paige. I'm Quinn Williams, General Counsel for the Universities of Wisconsin, and thank you for the opportunity to ask for your support in passing item resolution I-11, in which we seek the board's approval of the notice of preliminary public hearing on the scope statements for the revisions of chapters UWS 1, 4, 7, 11, and 17 of the Wisconsin Administrative Code included in your materials today. And I'd like to add one additional thank you to the Office of Shared Services for their support through Ron Schwartz in getting these groups together over the past year and a half. There's been a lot of work for a very compressed timeline that we're going to be trying to hit between now and August and over the next year. So one of the primary responsibilities of the board in preparing for the August 1st implementation date and beyond is to update both the relevant Universities of Wisconsin Administrative Code provisions and region policies. Administrative rulemaking is a statutory authority granted to the board under Chapter 36 with oversight and approval by the governor and the legislature. And administrative rules have the same force and effect of law as statutes. The administrative rulemaking process is extensive and will require multiple reviews and approvals by this board as we go through it over the summer and into the fall this year. Just up on the slide, those are the groups that Paige was referencing, representing our universities, to which we owe a great deal of thanks for all of your staff's support over the past year and a half in getting ready for this and for the work to come. The attached timeline identifies key steps to be aware of over the coming year, including board approvals, public comments, and effective dates for changes to our rules. All UW institutions would be affected by the proposed rule revisions articulated in the attached scope statements in your packet. Revisions will likely focus on relevant student conduct and employment rules that will likely need to be modified to meet the new federal regulations. So as you can see, at least 2 more touches here before the board, before we get through the end of the summer in August, and then at least 1 more approval sometime in the fall. If the board approves the hearing notice today, we will seek input on the scope statements via online comments through 5 p.m. on June 14th through the comment form provided in the links on our Title IX compliance website and at a virtual public hearing to be held on June 14th. The purpose of this comment period is to capture comments related to whether or not we have identified the appropriate scope necessary to cover potential rulemaking in response to the new Title IX federal regulations. Comments regarding permanent and emergency rule language will occur early in the fall.
I wonder if I could ask the campuses to take note of that slide, and please let your faculty and staff know. We haven't cast a very wide web on this yet, and I think maybe we need to do that. So we'll leave the information up for a second, or you can obtain it from Quinn when we're finished with this part of the meeting.
When campus stakeholders, students, employees, faculty, or the public click on or are directed to that link to the Office of Compliance Integrity's Title IX page, they will see the proposed Title IX changes public comment form section on the next slide. Oh, there we go. If the board approves this hearing notice today, we will be pushing this link to the hearing notice on this site out broadly internally to all of the relevant communities of practice on your campuses for further distribution, and will work with the Universities of Wisconsin Office of Communications for broad external public notification. With that, we would ask that the board adopt Resolution I-11, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
May I have a motion to approve? Thank you. Thank you very much. Questions for our team at the end of the table? Yes, Regent Peterson.
We understand why these emergency rules or these new rules are being, I'm kind of out of the loop here. It's, can you give me a 2-sentence explanation of why this evolved?
In order to be compliant by August 1st, we have to modify specific administrative rule provisions.
Why did the government decide that they had to change the rules? The Department of Education.
That's the $1 million question. A lot of it is there was significant questions about previous rules. We thought the government thought that the process that was outlined originally was not the best process, shall we say, and they wanted to make it so due process was more solidified, but also gave, I guess, compassion and empathy to those who are victims of this and had a broader way to report and get help, because at this point it was pretty narrow.
Thank you.
I think if you also look in the materials in the packet, it also explains that there has been numerous changes to Title IX over the past 10 to 15 years. So with change in administrations at times, then there's updates on the regulations depending again on the administrative goals.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Regent Bogus.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It's very helpful. I have 2 questions. So the first question, I'm just curious if the campuses, this is a huge undertaking, so I appreciate all of you, and this is an enormous effort. So we very much appreciate it, but I'm just curious if the other campuses, if you feel like they have enough support, because I know that many of them are wearing dual hats, triple hats, and I know it's just you, all of you. So I know it's a scramble. I'm just trying to figure out if that's enough support for them and how it's going. That's my first question.
I would say that it's a work in progress. I think Title IX in and of itself, when we started to create the Title IX coordination process and have those positions on campus, some are full-time, some are part-time, just depending on the needs of the universities. It doesn't have to be full-time under the regulations, but the work is increasing and the expectations and responsibility of those roles are increasing. And that requires then a more assessment of whether or not we're prepared. But I would say it's something that we're continuing to talk through. And as we go through the next few months, we'll have a better sense of what we may need.
And Region Vice President, what we would hope to do at the upcoming, assuming the hearing notice is approved today and we can come back for an approval of the scope statement, we would like to have an estimate of what the overall training requirements and some initial estimates of what we think some of those increased responsibilities are going to look like. It's also probably very accurate to say over the next year, we'll have to evaluate how this is being implemented and what the new changes and requirements are going to have in terms of downstream impacts on the campus.
Thank you. Second question. Just given the broader scope of definitions with definition of sexual harassment and also geographic, the new definition, the wider scope of the geographic location on campus, do you foresee a lot more reporting? I have no idea what the reporting's been. I know it's been up and down, but because of the definitions, should we be prepared for more?
The short answer is yes, we should be prepared for more. Some of it will just be a movement of, because the current definition before it changes in August 1st is very specific to literally on campus. So anything that happened off campus didn't necessarily fall under Title IX, but it still happened and it was still dealt with just under the Dean of Students typically, or a conduct office. This will now all be moved under the Title IX process and under the Title IX coordinator's responsibility. So you're moving it from one office to the other. I will say though, that anecdotally from what I have seen and heard, and I have been a Title IX coordinator, that when you make the process easier to report, people tend to report. And when you show as an institution, you are serious about taking these reports seriously, that ripples. People talk, students talk, they're much more willing to come forward. So I do see an increase, possible increase of those reports.
Thank you. This question is for any of the three of you. Are there any of these rule changes that you look at and you're particularly concerned about our campus's ability to respond quickly enough to the change?
I would say the biggest one is the training. That one, they slid under the radar. We did not expect it. We went from almost no required training except for those practitioners to literally every single employee on campus has to be trained. There are specific subsets, whether you're a confidential employer or not a confidential employer. This is quite a lift. And we're working on a plan is how I'm going to put it. But that is, you think about employees who are 9-month versus 10-month versus 12-month. It's hard to say we're going to start a training at this point and not everybody is working. And then they do also require that if you have changed positions significantly or you are starting a new position, you have to be trained within 30 days. So it is a constant lift, and it is not one that we were expecting.
If you, as the folks who mainly deal with this, are you also charged with creating this training and then tracking who has it and who hasn't done it?
Yes, I mean, yeah, that's part of compliance, is that we do have to show that we have done this training. It is a requirement that if Department of Education or OCR were to come down and say, who's been trained on your campus, that we can show who they are and what training they have taken.
Wow. Yes, Regent Nixon.
A couple questions for General Counsel. As I understand it, this rule has been proposed by the federal government, and if we don't do something by August 1st, something bad happens to us. What would the bad thing be?
We would be at risk of loss of federal funding and be at significant risk for potential litigation.
Okay, so we would lose federal funding. All right, that's the one bad thing. Next question. All we are approving today is the notice of a preliminary hearing. We are not approving the actual rules per se. So all we are doing today is approving notice so people can have input on this.
That is correct.
We are not approving these rules. We're not saying they're good or bad. We are proposing them. Is that correct?
We are proposing to hold a hearing on the scope statement, which will come back to this board for approval, after which we will begin rulemaking and then bring those rules back to the board for approval.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And for those of you who are not lawyers, Quinn, Paige, et cetera, will be ready by phone to explain exactly what he meant by that. Any other questions or comments? All right, I will call the question then. All in favor of adopting Resolution 11, approving the notice for the preliminary hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. That concludes open session. Vice President Bogus, will you read the motion to move into closed session?
Move that the Board of Regents move into closed session to consider a student request for review of a UW-Madison disciplinary decision as permitted by Section 19.85, paren 1, parent and parent G of the Wisconsin statutes, and to consider faculty member requests for review of UW-La Crosse personnel decisions as permitted by Section 19.85, parent 1, parent C, parent F, and parent G.
Be you in a couple months. This will be you reading the resolution. Thank you. Megan, please call the roll.
Adams?
I'm doing much better than I
Uncle?
Nadano. Hello.
Thank you. Regent Bogus? Regent Brankus? Regent Brankus?
Oh, sorry, but yes.
Regent Cologne? Yes.
That's a yes.
Regent Goydam? Thank you. Regent Cruiser?
Yes. Oh, that's not.
Regent Many Deeds? Regent Nixon?
Yes.
That's
That's-
Yes.
Is that a yes? Thank you.
Regent Peterson?
Yes.
Regent Prince?
Yes.
Regent Rye? Regent Salzwedel? Thank you. Regent Trainer? Regent Tyler? Regent Underly? Regent Walsh?
Yes.
Regent Weatherly?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we will pause while the room and the lines clear.
I vote no, and I've not.